Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. So, I'm just sitting here minding my business, thinking about random stuff on basketball, and then something came across my screen about John Wall. I don't know what it was, just made me realize that John Wall is still with the Rockets. And I looked up his contract. It's still very healthy. 2 years, $42 million, something like that. I'm wondering if the Rockets want to hold on to that contract going forward. I'm wondering if that's the contract that they want on their books now that they have so many young players um, who happen to be guards in some cases, ready to run and kind of take this thing going by storm rather. So that's what I'm wondering about. John Wall is a point guard who showed us last year that even though he has his injury issues, he's still somebody who has a lot left in the tank. Um, you know, he came to Houston and had a good first half of his season there. Um, Even in the midst of the circumstances going on with James Harden, he shined. Unfortunately, though, the Houston Rockets were not a very good team, and he did get hurt, and that kind of opened up the door for Porter to come in and show what he could really do at that point guard position. John Wall called him a little version of him, maybe even better. Um, and I would be inclined to say that Porter has shown me enough to believe in him for sure. He's going to have to do a heck of a lot on the defensive end if he wants to be compared to John Wall, in my opinion. But if John Wall say he reminds him of him, I'm gonna run with that. Um, the point is, Porter is a fantastic young player who, in my opinion, should be starting for this basketball club right now. I look at Jalen Green. Obviously, he's going to be a starting shooting guard. They got Tate there, starting small forward, young player. They got a bunch of young guys. You look at Martin is also in place. Wood is also in place. They got a fantastic young core. But they got this $80 million player at the point guard position who's fantastic, great player. But all he's really going to do is take minutes away from Porter. Uh, that's all he's really doing. You have a timeline that's full for all of these youngsters. These youngsters are all on the same page in terms of their timeline, is what I'm saying to you. And John Wall is just kind of in the way, straight up and down. He's just kind of in the way. Now at a different price tag, it's fine, no problem, because he can help these young players along. He could be that motivator in the locker room. Maybe even he would even be willing to come off the bench if he was making like a mid-level or something at this stage in his career. Kind of play behind those kids and kind of do what Derek Fisher did for Ty Lue when the Lakers were running those guys. Ty Lue, was able to take the starting position because Derek Fisher basically gave it to him. Like, yo, I want to see this kid succeed. Let him take the reins for a little bit, see if he can get some starting minutes. And it worked. It legitimately put Ty Lue in a position to where he was able to help the Lakers when Derek Fisher went down with an injury. So during the playoffs, and even though the Lakers didn't win the series, you could clearly see that for what was needed, Derek Fisher did Ty Lue a solid. And I would imagine that's the type of thing that you would want to see John Wall do if the circumstances were different, if they were different. But John Wall is still very much a player ready to continue his career. He's not over the hump. He's not in his late 30s or nothing like that. It's not time for all of that yet. And because of it, I just think it's just kind of a weird spot for him to be in. Now, granted, I don't think he has the leverage like maybe another guy like, say, a James Harden or someone else, would have to say, let me get out of here. Nor do I think he's looking to really move on, to be honest with you, per se. Like, and if he can go to like a Lakers or a Brooklyn, obviously that would be something that would be intriguing to a player like John Wall. But I think in this situation, having the fact that he's played in Washington his entire career and it's been a lot of injury issues, I don't think he really cares too much about that at this point. He just wants to get out there. He's under contract. He's getting his money. So it really doesn't really matter, More so it matters that he just be out there and able to continue his career. Because as far as like playing for contract, stuff like that, that's not in the play right now. So, looking at the situation, the problem with the field out there is that everybody has their point guard position set. And as I've mentioned, a lot of young players that are coming in the league in this draft are also point guards who are going to make it so that teams are already very deep at the point guard position. That's what guys like Reggie Jackson, Dennis Schroeder ran into in this free agency. They didn't really need no point guards. All the teams that needed point guards happen to have draft picks that gave them point guards. So it was a fortuitous situation in the league right now, just how the things kind of fell into place naturally. But as a result, the point guards were kind of left behind, and so a guy like John Wall, in normal circumstances, he would be coveted by Lakers or Brooklyn or something like that. But because the cap is as it is, and everybody has all these guards, nobody's looking for one. Like literally, the whole league is pretty much set on point guards. So a guy like John Wall is kind of stuck in Houston. A guy like Porter's kind of stuck behind him because you're not going to have Porter playing in front of John Wall making $42 million a year. Now, I'm not saying John Wall makes your team worse, but John Wall is at his best when he's playing his, a star's level of minutes, a starter's bevy of minutes, 30 plus, With his injury issues, you like having insurance for him, no question. So with that being said, him being on a team like Houston with Porter in place does great things for Houston's depth. It's not like Houston themselves have a problem. But a guy like John Wall, for your books, if you're a GM, you're looking at him and it's like, God, man, I could use so many other things in his stead. Like, for example, the way that they had to let their center go to Detroit in free agency, that didn't have to happen. If they had John Wall's money, that $42 million, some of that went to that player. They could have kept him. And there's certain other things that they could do with their roster that obviously they cannot do with John Wall's contract on file. Now, would they rather have John Wall's contract or Russell Westbrook? For that franchise where they've been, I'm sure there would be John Wall, based on what it is that they were trying to work away from, work around, and all of that. But at the same time, now it's just like, okay, we got this young team, we're ready to run out here. We still have some needs, particularly at the center position, and our depth and things of that nature could be better. We got a fantastic young superstar point guard, but we have a fantastic young superstar prospect point guard behind him. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Basically, the Houston Rockets are just stuck with this contract for the next 2 years. They're definitely not going to be able to move it this year. I don't think anybody's going to try picking that up unless something drastic happens in the league, like some great point guard goes down or something. Even if that's the case, they're certainly not going to want to bring on that contract, so it's even less likely something like that would ever occur. So John Wall's just going to be suiting up for the Rockets this year and probably beginning of next. If he gets traded at all, it would be like at the trade deadline of next year, not this coming. So, yeah, he's just stuck there. And he's stuck with them, and they're stuck with him. And the only person who really suffers for it, honestly, in my opinion, is Porter. And that's what frustrates me about it, I guess, for his standpoint. I think he's ready to rock in terms of being a starting point guard. I think he has all the talent necessary. And, of course, him and Green are going to be a 1-2 punch seemingly for years to come. You add Tate to that. You add all these different guys that they got that can really, really go in Houston. And then you just understand that they got a contract they can't do nothing with. Doubling down on the point guard position when they probably have other needs. So it is what it is. I don't think they move Porter, to make things happen. You know what I mean? That would be a more easy person to move, obviously. But like I said, him and Green, they look like they were born to run with each other. They even look like each other. So it's like you're not breaking them up. So you're just stuck with what you're stuck with, man. John Wall doesn't make them a worse team. That's for damn sure. They're not going to be worse. Those guys are interchangeable. Green can move to the 3. Porter can move to the 2 to 1. Wall can move to the 1 to the 2. So the players that they have are interchangeable. You're not stuck not playing good players. You just have to play small ball lineups. It's not a big deal. But all in all, that's what the Houston Rockets got going on. They found some good things in the draft. Alperen Sengun is a guy that's playing very, very well for them right now. We'll keep an eye on him. He's a power forward prospect as well. So depth there is very, very plentiful at the power forward position with him and Wood. But I just look at their center position and say they could use an upgrade or two. I believe they brought in Daniel Tice, if I'm not mistaken. That's a good pickup. He's a player who's ascending in production. So they're a good team. But I look at that center position, I say after Christian Wood, Daniel Tice is a nice defensive player, but you're not going to have any success against the ADs and the Karl Anthony Towns and the guys like that, which is ultimately going to be an Achilles heel for the Houston Rockets, even as their players start to come into stardom. The question is going to be, who are they throwing at these big players? They gave away Clint Capella many years ago to try to create cap space because they were so strangle-held. It was impossible to have Westbrook, Capella, and Harden on the floor at the same time. So they traded away Capella and did away with the center position entirely, but they have not necessarily replaced his rebounding production at all. Now, like I said, they did have a guy that they loved playing that position, but unfortunately, he went to Detroit. So I don't know, like I said, Wood is there, so he's going to have to play some center, even though I like him more at the 4. Maybe they got some other answers there. I have to look at their roster, but all in all, they're a bit small of a team, and that would be something John Wall's contract would be able to help them with if it were there. So it is what it is, man. This is just what happens. This is the only way they could have got rid of that Westbrook contract is if they traded it for John Wall. We all know that. That Wall contract was going to be stuck with them for a while. We know that. And as the gears in my mind start to swirl around, I start thinking about a guy by the name of Ben Simmons. That's who comes to mind. In real time, I'm sitting here talking aloud, and in my head said, wait a minute, there's one way to get rid of that John Wall contract. And there may be one team who would be willing to take on that John Wall contract. But the problem is they value Ben Simmons so high, and John Wall is technically damaged goods, to where that's actually not a good trade for Philadelphia. Taking on that contract because you would rather keep Ben Simmons if you're Philly. Because John Wall goes down with another injury. Now you not only have a bad contract, but you also have no player. At least with Ben Simmons, he's not injury prone at this time. He's had his injury issues, but right now he's healthy. You run him out there. You expect him to be healthy. He's young. You expect him to play out the 4-year contract. And you're not expecting anything funny. With John Wall, it's like at $42 million, he's like 1 or 2 knee injuries away from being gone. So I would present it to Philly, you know what I mean? I would present it to them if they just want to get rid of Ben Simmons, if they just have to. You look at their situation and say, well, they probably feel they have to. And I don't think they're going to get a whole lot of good value for him. At least John Wall gives him a star caliber guy, superstar caliber player. That's something I'm looking at. If I'm the Houston Rockets, I understand that I can move Ben Simmons to the 4 and then have all those other guys that I'm telling you about play their natural position. And Christian Wood and that defensive issue with them not having the big up there to help Christian Wood with them bigs, that goes away with Ben Simmons. He takes care of that. He can defend guys bigger than him because he's one of the best defenders in all of basketball. The Houston Rockets, I said a long time ago, before all this stuff got settled with their roster coming into play with all these youngsters, I thought that it would be a good idea for them to trade for Ben Simmons. Or Joel Embiid if possible, because I felt Joel Embiid would fit the history that they've had with the Houston Rockets having bigs. But Ben Simmons is an equally decent spot for him to go because I felt like they had somewhat of a blank canvas to kind of build around and bring the pieces to him. In this situation, I think he would actually feel a need defensively for the Houston Rockets. He would not be he would still need to shoot the ball in order for their offense to run properly. But I think the youngsters that they have can shoot the ball well enough and they're cerebral well enough to get the most out of him to where they still have enough spacing on the floor away from him. You're removing John Wall from the roster. You're bringing in Ben Simmons. You still have the Porters. You still have the Tates. You still have those guys who can shoot the ball. They're not shooters, but they can shoot, willing shooters. So the fit is there. Green and Simmons, that's a lot of athleticism in your front court. Wood, Porter. If they can do that, I think it would be the most reasonable return for Philly that I've heard of thus far is the John Wall contract. And nobody's talking about it but me. In fact, it just came to me right now. So I don't know. This is kind of how my brain works. Maybe it's not possible, but I look at the contract numbers on there. Walls has 2 years. Simmons has 4 years, but they're at the same dollar amount, basically $42, $44 million. And as you know, when it comes to those type of things, you can do it. As long as the dollar amount matches, it doesn't matter for the years. You can stretch that. You can do a lot of different acrobatics to make that work into your cap, so long as you can match those dollar amounts. So, yeah, man. Daryl Morey, that's your old team. It makes even more sense when you think about it because he still has ties in Houston. Probably not great ones, but he did some great work there. So he should be willing to do work with his old team, and his old team should be willing to do work with him, this makes a lot of sense because they have to get out from under that John Wall contract to get the most out of their team, and they need to get better defensively. Wow, they should probably do that. Oh, I just stumbled onto something. I think they should do it. Now, like I said, I don't think this is the greatest thing for Philly, but you could sweeten the pot for Philly by finding some other value piece for them, you know what I mean? Or taking something from them that maybe they want to dump in salary. So that can create even more flexibility for them in that flurry. Now, I don't know if the Houston Rockets have the space to do that, but I look at Jalen Green's contract, I look at Alperen Sengun's contract. Those are rookie contracts, high productive players, which means the chances of them being able to fit some things in increases because of that ability to let go of whatever you need to let go of, knowing those guys are coming at the cheap with productive roles. So that, in theory, should be able to give them some movability, flexibility within the trade itself. Somebody would have to do the numbers to make it make sense, but I'm looking at that, and the more I think about it, the more it makes sense for Houston. So that's what I'm thinking, man. Houston should probably consider trying to get rid of that John Wall contract. That was the moral of the story. I didn't see a way for them to do it at the beginning of this thing, but now I see it now. Ben Simmons, they should do that. So that's what I think, man. Now, as far as Philly's concerned, in general, what they would be bringing back is a guy like John Wall who can continue the defensive mindset of a Ben Simmons. Obviously a much smaller guy, but you understand that when you're picking up John Wall, you're picking up one of the premier defensive players in basketball when right. A lot of people forget about that because he's one of the premier passers in basketball when right as well. He's a big-time assist guy. Jump shot here and there, three-point shot here and there, but we know he can take and make big shots. We know he has superior ball handling skills. We know that even though he's had some lower leg injuries, he's still a superior speed level athlete in terms of his leg speed. He's just faster than all humans, basically. He's up there with De'Aaron Fox, one of the fastest people in basketball. So when you're considering all of these things, really what you're worried about is just what his health looks like now. Because we last saw him, he did get hurt in a Houston Rockets uniform and did go out for the season. However, I look at that sort of like I look at Kyle Lowry's situation. Same thing. That team wasn't very good. They were trying to get the second pick in the draft. They ended up with Green, right? They would not have gotten Green if John Wall would have came back and played like John Wall. If they'd have won more games, they'd probably not been in that position. So, like Lowry, I think they just sat him. Hey, you a little hurt? No, you're a lot hurt. Keep sitting. That's what I think happened there. And it made sense. You got that type of contract, why throw him out there? You're losing. I mean, common sense shuts him down. So I believe that's what happened there. And what John Wall would find in Philadelphia is an opportunity to continue to win basketball games. In fact, he would be in a better situation than he's in right now because I think Philadelphia is in a better position to compete than the Houston Rockets in the Western Conference. I think that. I do think that. Bringing in John Wall, removing Ben Simmons still gives them a star-level guard that can get the ball to Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid would not skip a beat as far as having his facilitator available to him in theory. As long as John Wall doesn't get hurt, you have a high-level athlete who can get you the ball just like Ben did, no problem. Probably runs better with you than Ben because he's more of a traditional point guard of size and stature. It's not as much shuffling in the roster. A guy like, let's see, some of their other players that they have on the team probably play a little more traditional ways of playing. Tobias Harris, I don't know how much he would be affected by this at all, to be honest with you. Like I said, you get a high-level facilitator and a high-level defender with John Wall. That's what you're giving up in Ben Simmons. But what you don't have, which is why I think the Philadelphia 76ers should consider this deal, what you don't have is somebody who refuses to shoot the ball. It gives your offense more spacing than you will have if you let Ben Simmons start the season as a Sixer. John Wall comes in and is a willing three-point shooter and somebody who will make the shot here and there. He's not completely just inept at the three-point shot. He'll make it. A shot maker who will get everybody else the ball. So all those issues you have with Ben Simmons go away. And all of the things that Ben Simmons brings to your table defensively stay with you. The only thing you lose is the size and the rebounding, which is something you plan on losing anyway because you're not going to get anybody Ben Simmons size back for Ben Simmons. You're not getting that. It's not there. No one else has that. Ben Simmons is a one-of-one player in that way. So if you have to consider what you're giving up, I hear about all these players that are trying to get back. Dame Lillard, I love Dame Lillard offensively. He doesn't help you defensively. You're going to get significantly worse if you bring in Dame defensively. And it doesn't matter. You're still a much better team if you bring in Dame and trade Ben Simmons. But what I'm saying to you is John Wall is a much better defender than Dame Lillard. I heard about CJ McCollum's name. If for some reason they would be willing to trade Ben Simmons and actually not bring back Dame, I heard CJ was somebody they're looking at. CJ's not that great a defender either. John Wall's a better defender than CJ. Hear about other, you think about what they're considering bringing back. The Golden State Warrior deal is really intriguing because they can get back Kuminga, maybe Wiseman. I think I like that deal better than Rockets deal, to be honest with you. But the Warriors, I feel like if they were willing to do a deal for Ben Simmons, they'd already done it. I think that ultimately they had a split locker room about that, or a split front office rather about that, and have probably decided not to go that route, or are still mulling over it. Could be both, because I do think they're split. But I think that if you can't get that deal, and you just look like you're starting the season with Ben Simmons, whether you got a choice or not, I think placing a call to Houston makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense. So anyway, that's what I got, man. My name is BDF44. I thank y'all for dealing with me as my mind does what it does. And this is the type of content I'm about, man. I try to talk about stuff that isn't just the traditional stuff that you'll hear. So this is BDF44. Thank y'all for watching. No?